Single dad janitor humiliated by the millionaire CEO. What he did next will shock you. He was on his knees, scrubbing the floor, when the most powerful man in the building looked down at him and said, "People like you are invisible for a reason." And the entire lobby went silent. But what happened exactly 365 days later, in that same lobby, in front of those same people, will absolutely destroy you. Stay with me, because this story is about to change how you see everything. And before we go any further, if you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or told you weren't enough, this one's for you. Hit that like button right now, because you're going to want your friends to see how this ends. And if you're new here, subscribe. You will not regret it. Now let's rewind, all the way back to where this story really begins. His name was Daniel Ray Cooper. And on the morning everything changed, he was 41 years old, 5'9", wearing a gray uniform with a small rip near the left pocket that he kept meaning to sew but never had time to. He smelled like pine-scented cleaner and burnt coffee. His hands were rough. His back hurt. And his 9-year-old daughter, Emma, had drawn a little heart on the inside of his wrist with a red marker before school that morning, whispering, "So you're never alone today, Daddy." He pressed that wrist to his chest every time things got hard. And things were always hard. Daniel had not chosen this life. He had been chosen by it, the way life sometimes grabs a person by the collar and drags them somewhere they never planned to go. 6 years ago, he had been a licensed electrician running his own small business in Charlotte, North Carolina. He had a wife named Christine, a house with a yellow front door, a daughter who was 3 and already obsessed with butterflies. Life wasn't perfect, but it was his, and it was real, and it was enough. Then Christine got sick. Not the kind of sick that gets better, the other kind. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, diagnosed in March, gone by October. 7 months. That's how long he had to say goodbye, learn how to be a single father, watch his daughter forget what her mother's laugh sounded like, and somehow keep the lights on. He sold the business to pay the medical bills. He sold the house 6 months later. He moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on the east side of the city, in a building where the elevator broke twice a month and the neighbors argued through the walls. Emma was 4 when her mother died. By 9, she had stopped asking when Mommy was coming back. That silence was worse than the questions. Daniel got the janitor job at Hargrove Tower, the tallest commercial building in downtown Charlotte, through a friend of a friend. The pay was steady. The hours were early. He could drop Emma at school, work his shift, pick her up, help with homework, make dinner, read her a story and collapse, then do it all again. He wasn't invisible. He just lived in a world that had learned not to look at him. And for 4 years, that world was Hargrove Tower. Now, let me tell you about the man at the top of that tower. Raymond Hargrove III. 53 years old, born rich, got richer, CEO of Hargrove Capital, a private investment firm worth somewhere north of $2 billion. He wore suits that cost more than Daniel's monthly rent. He had 3 cars, 2 homes, and 1 personality, cold. The people who worked directly under Raymond described him in one word: demanding. The people who worked in the lower levels of the building described him in different words, none of which were polite. Raymond Hargrove did not learn janitors' names. He did not say good morning to the cleaning staff. When he walked past them in the hallway, he looked through them like they were made of glass, not with cruelty exactly, with something almost worse, complete and total indifference. To Raymond, Daniel wasn't a man. He was furniture that moved. But here's what Raymond didn't know about the man who cleaned his floors. Daniel Cooper had a mind that never stopped working. Every night after Emma fell asleep, Daniel would sit at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and a cheap ballpoint pen, and he would write. Not stories, not journals, plans. Business plans, investment ideas, market observations, things he'd noticed during his years as an electrician, patterns he'd started to see while overhearing conversations in the hallways of Hargrove Tower. Because here's the thing about being invisible, you hear everything. In 4 years of cleaning the 32nd floor, the executive floor, Daniel had overheard hundreds of conversations through half-open doors and thin walls, strategy meetings, deal negotiations, arguments about missed quarterly targets. He wasn't eavesdropping. He was just there, doing his job, while the powerful people forgot he existed. And he listened, and he learned, and he wrote it all down on those yellow legal pads, 14 of them now, stacked neatly on his nightstand. He had started very quietly, very carefully, investing small amounts of money. $20 here, $50 there. Using what he'd overheard legally, always public information, combined with his own research done on his phone during lunch breaks. In 2 years, those small investments had grown. Not dramatically, not yet, but enough to make him believe that maybe, this wasn't his whole story. Now back to that morning, the morning it all broke open. It was a Tuesday in February. The lobby of Hargrove Tower was full, executives arriving for a company-wide leadership summit, suits and heels and expensive cologne, and the sound of important people pretending to be humble. Daniel was on his knees near the center of the lobby, dealing with a chemical spill. Someone had knocked over a cleaning supply cart, not his fault, but his responsibility. He was working fast, head down, focused, the way he always worked. He didn't hear Raymond Hargrove approaching until the footsteps stopped directly behind him. He looked up. Raymond was standing there with 3 senior executives and a woman Daniel recognized as a journalist from the Charlotte Business Chronicle. She had a recorder in her hand. Raymond looked down at Daniel the way you might look at a crack in the sidewalk, mildly inconvenienced by its existence. And then he said it. Loud, clear, in front of everyone. "Could you not do this right now? We have guests. This is embarrassing." He paused and then, almost to himself, loud enough for everyone to hear, "People like you are invisible for a reason. Try to act like it." Laughter not from everyone, but from enough. Daniel's jaw tightened. He felt the heat crawl up his neck. He looked down at the red heart Emma had drawn on his wrist that morning. He breathed. He did not stand up and yell. He did not cry. He did not walk out. He nodded once quietly and kept working. But something had shifted inside him. Something had locked into place. A decision, quiet as a key turning in a lock. He wasn't angry, he was determined. And those are 2 very different things. That night Daniel sat at his kitchen table longer than usual. Emma was asleep. The apartment was quiet. He opened a new yellow legal pad, number 15, and at the top of the first page, he wrote one sentence. "This is the last year I am invisible." Then he got to work. What happened over the next 12 months is almost impossible to believe, but every part of it is true. Daniel had been sitting on something he'd been too scared, too cautious, too exhausted to act on. A company, a startup he'd spent 3 years quietly researching, a small renewable energy tech firm out of Raleigh called GreenPath Solutions. They were developing a new kind of solar storage technology that solved a problem the entire industry had been struggling with for a decade. Nobody was talking about them yet. Nobody on Wall Street, nobody in the financial press. They were too small, too quiet. But Daniel had been watching them for 2 years. He'd read every public filing, every patent application, every interview the founder had ever given. He had 40 pages of notes on this one company alone. He believed in them completely. And that Tuesday night, after Raymond Hargrove had looked through him like he was made of glass, Daniel took every cent he had saved, $11,000, built over 2 years of $20 investments and strict budgeting and skipped lunches, and he put it all into GreenPath Solutions. Every single dollar. His hands were shaking when he pressed confirm. He sat back, looked at Emma's school photo on the fridge, looked at the yellow legal pads on the nightstand, and whispered, "Okay, Christine, let's go. Now I need you to stay with me here, because what happens next is the part that nobody saw coming." Not Daniel, not Raymond Hargrove, not the journalist who had been standing in that lobby with her recorder. Are you still here? Good, because this is where the story turns. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because the ending of this story is something you will want to come back to. 4 months after Daniel made that investment, GreenPath Solutions was acquired. Not by a small regional firm, not by a mid-level energy company. By Hargrove Capital. Raymond Hargrove, chasing a pivot into green energy after pressure from his board, had quietly purchased GreenPath Solutions for $87 million. Daniel found out on a Thursday morning in the break room of Hargrove Tower on his phone during his 15-minute lunch break. He read the headline 3 times. Then he did the math. His $11,000 had just become $422,000. He sat very still for a long time. Then he walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and cried. Not from sadness, from something bigger than he had words for. Relief, gratitude, the particular kind of joy that only people who have carried enormous weight for a very long time can feel when they finally set it down. He dried his eyes, walked back out, finished his shift. He told no one. But that was only the beginning. Because GreenPath Solutions didn't just get acquired. Their technology worked. It worked beyond anyone's projections. Within 6 months of the acquisition, Hargrove Capital's stock had jumped 31%, and Daniel's shares, which he had held through the acquisition and converted at exactly the right moment, had grown further still. By month 8, Daniel had quietly accumulated just over $1.2 million. He still wore the gray uniform. He still scrubbed the floors. He still dropped Emma at school every morning. He still had the rip near the left pocket of his uniform that he hadn't sewn. Because he was waiting for the right moment. And then, on a Thursday in February, exactly 1 year after Raymond Hargrove had crouched down in that lobby and told him that people like him were invisible for a reason, Daniel walked into the HR department of Hargrove Tower and submitted his resignation. Then he walked upstairs, to the 32nd floor, to Raymond Hargrove's office. He knocked. He was still in his uniform. Raymond looked up from his desk with the expression of a man who genuinely could not process what he was seeing. "Can I help you?" He didn't recognize Daniel, not at first. Daniel placed a single envelope on the desk. "I wanted to deliver this personally," Daniel said. "My resignation and my thank you." Raymond's brow creased. "Your thank you? A year ago, you told me that people like me are invisible for a reason." Daniel kept his voice steady, quiet, completely calm. "You said it in front of a lobby full of people. I want you to know that it was the most important thing anyone has ever said to me." Raymond was silent. "Because it made me stop being afraid." Daniel nodded once. "I'm starting a company, an investment consultancy. I've already secured my first 3 clients. I have a meeting next week with 2 former GreenPath executives who want to work with me." He paused. "I'm naming the company after my daughter. It's called Emma Ray Capital." He turned to leave. "Wait," Raymond's voice was different now, quieter. "The GreenPath acquisition, did you invest in?" Daniel looked back over his shoulder. "I learned from the best," he said simply. And he walked out. Emma, when Daniel picked her up from school that afternoon, immediately noticed something different about him. She couldn't say what it was. He seemed lighter, taller somehow, like something that had been pressing down on him from the inside had finally been removed. "Daddy," she said, climbing into the car, "you look happy." He looked at her in the rearview mirror. Those eyes, Christine's eyes. "I am, baby," he said. "I really am." She leaned forward and looked at his wrist. The red marker heart was faded now, nearly gone. She grabbed his hand and drew a new one right over the old one. "So you're never alone," she said. Daniel had to pull over. He sat in the car on the side of the road and let himself feel it, all of it, every cold morning, every scrubbed floor, every lonely night at the kitchen table, every time he had looked at Christine's photo and whispered, "I'm still here, I'm still going, I'm not going to stop." He felt all of it rush through him at once like a river finally reaching the ocean. He was not invisible. He had never been invisible. He had just been gathering. Emma Ray Capital launched 6 months later. In its first year, it returned 43% to its investors, outperforming 92% of similar firms in its class. Daniel hired a staff of 7. 3 of them were former janitors who, like him, had spent years being overlooked, underestimated, and undervalued. He mentored them personally. He taught them what he knew, not just about investing, but about patience, about listening, about the power of being in a room and having people forget you're there, about what you can learn when the world decides you don't matter and you decide to pay attention anyway. And Raymond Hargrove. 18 months after Daniel left, the Charlotte Business Chronicle, the same publication whose journalist had been standing in that lobby with a recorder the day Raymond made his comment, ran a cover story. The headline read, "The Invisible Man Who Saw It Coming, How a Janitor Quietly Outmaneuvered Everyone." The journalist had tracked Daniel down. She remembered him. She had been standing right there. She had heard every word Raymond Hargrove said. The story went national. Daniel was invited to speak at a business school in Charlotte. He sat in an auditorium full of MBA students, young people who had followed every conventional path, done everything right by every conventional measure, and he told them the truth. "The greatest advantage I ever had," he said, "was that no one thought I was worth watching." The room was silent. When people overlook you, they get careless. They talk too loud. They leave doors open. They forget to lock their strategies away because they don't think you're listening. And if you're patient, if you're disciplined, if you show up every single day even when it's humiliating, even when it's painful, even when you're on your knees scrubbing a floor while someone in an expensive suit looks through you like you're made of glass, he paused. You learn things that no classroom will ever teach you. He leaned forward. Never let anyone else define your ceiling. After the speech, a young man approached Daniel in the parking lot, 19 years old, working 2 part-time jobs to pay for community college. His hands were rough. His eyes were sharp. He reminded Daniel of someone. He reminded Daniel of himself. "I work nights at a shipping warehouse," the young man said. "I've been trying to learn about investing on my own. I don't have much, but I've been saving. I don't know where to start." Daniel looked at him for a long moment. Then he pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to him. "Call my office Monday morning," he said. "Ask for me directly. Tell them I sent you." He paused. "You're not invisible, son. Don't let anyone convince you that you are." The young man stared at the card. His hands were shaking. Daniel clapped him once on the shoulder, walked to his car, and drove home to his daughter. That night, Emma was doing homework at the kitchen table when Daniel sat down across from her. She looked up. "Daddy," she said, "do you ever miss being a janitor?" He thought about it, genuinely thought about it. "I miss some parts of it," he said. "I miss how quiet it was before everyone else arrived. I miss being able to think without anyone bothering me." Emma nodded seriously, the way 9-year-olds do when they decide something is important. "I think," she said carefully, "that you were always the same person. You just had to wait for everyone else to catch up." Daniel stared at his daughter for a long time. 9 years old. Christine's eyes. His stubbornness. Something entirely her own. "Yeah," he said softly, "I think you're right." Here's what I want to leave you with. There is someone watching this right now who has been told, maybe not out loud, maybe not directly, that they are invisible, that they are not the kind of person who gets to win, that their circumstances are their ceiling. I want you to hear this clearly. Daniel Cooper didn't succeed because he got lucky. He didn't succeed because Raymond Hargrove humiliated him. He succeeded because for years before that moment, in silence, in exhaustion, in grief, at a kitchen table at midnight, he had been doing the work that no one was watching. The humiliation didn't build him. It revealed him. He was already ready. He had been ready for years. The only thing Raymond Hargrove did was accidentally remind him of that fact. So whatever room you're in right now, whatever floor you're cleaning, whatever job you're showing up to, whatever dream you've been quietly building in the dark where no one can see it, keep going. Be patient, be disciplined, keep the yellow legal pads. And never, ever let anyone else write the ending of your story. Because the most powerful thing a person can do is walk back into the room where they were humiliated and show them exactly who they underestimated. If this story moved you, if any part of it hit different, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Not tomorrow, today. Hit that like button. It takes 1 second and it means everything. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe. Because we tell stories like this every single week. Stories about real human strength. Stories that remind you that the people the world overlooks are often the ones who change it. We'll see you in the next one. Don't give up, not today, not ever.